Welcome to this week's edition of World Crisis Radio. This is Webster Tarpley reporting to you from Washington, D.C., and it's Halloween, so happy Halloween. Looking back to the Roman feast of Pomona, which explains the apple ducking and the pumpkins and the gourds. This is Pomona. This has got other things added in, but of course it means that this is the last chance for the evil spirits, because tomorrow, All Saints' Day, with all those saints mobilized, right, some 40 to 50,000, I think, it's going to be very hard for the demons to get any traction. But today's also our election program, and here's our theme. That this is going to be the United States of sit down and shut up. And I'm not kidding. Sit down and shut up. That is the motto of the Garden State Goering, Governor Christie, right? The New Jersey answer to Nazi Reichsmarschall Hermann Goering. Physical resemblance, mental political method, all very similar. Sit down and shut up. So this essentially means the desire to crush all opposition. And I think this has revealed something deeper than what you might think. Here's my estimate. If we go along with the highly tendentious reporting of the controlled media, the Wall Street-controlled oligarchical media, we could say then that the following is a likely perspective. You remember when Scott Walker took over Wisconsin in January of 2011. People were not ready for the fury of his reactionary and fascist assault on the unions, on workers' rights, collective bargaining, his draconian cuts to the education budget, and so forth. And I think we're sitting now in such a situation. The mentality, the method, the deepest commitments of the fascisto-Republican Party are what you saw with Walker in Wisconsin. And to underline that perhaps even more dramatically, Governor Snyder of Michigan did precisely the same thing. When he took over executive power, he began with this emergency manager law, right, what we've called the Little Hitler law, that allowed him, and he proceeded to do it, to install little Hitlers, little dictators, local, unelected, unaccountable dictators, eager to line their own pockets and to line the pockets of their cronies in places we've heard a lot from Benton Harbor, thanks to Reverend Pinckney, but in Flint, in all kinds of other places, the Detroit school system, and finally Detroit itself. And as Reverend Pinckney has always underlined, that is not a matter that's limited to Michigan. That's coming to you. And how is it going to come to you? Well, it's obviously easier to do this if you have the executive power in your own hands. But if we look at Obama, his pathetic weakness, this really means that if the Republicans succeed in taking over, it's going to be, well, let's call it by its name, a permanent dictatorship of genocidal austerity and endless war. And this is not speculation. Remember, McCain has promised that he will press for U.S. ground troops, land divisions, infantry, tanks, and all the rest in Iraq and Syria. Another huge conflict with the obvious possibilities of colliding with Iran, maybe with Russia, maybe with other powers in the region. And then, of course, there's McConnell, right? The Mitch McConnell secret tape with David Koch that they're going to use the budget reconciliation method, 51 votes. You've just heard this week this raving petty bourgeois id, Mark Levin, screaming at McConnell, you got to use the 51 vote method, not the 60 vote method, because you won't have 60. And I think the idea is that McConnell's trying to say essentially, let me take power and you'll see how I'll do it. Let's not advertise that we're trying to essentially take over the executive branch by mobilizing both houses of Congress against the feckless Obama. And there it is, war and austerity. And they're not talking about it. They're simply saying how much they hate Obama and other cultural populist issues. They're talking about how folksy they are and how much they enjoy castrating hogs and cutting pork and all the rest of this. So the result is the permanent dictatorship. The right to vote will be significantly restricted. If you're old, young, black, poor, Hispanic, student, anything like that, your right to vote will be under attack. There will be no unions, no collective bargaining. Money will dominate election campaigns thanks to Citizens United. The rats cabal will dance to the tune of these reactionary Republicans. They'll try to strengthen that cabal, and the idea that Obama can mount any resistance to this is hopeless. So my word for the election is vote against the Republican lockstep. Vote for divided government. Vote against the Koch Republican Party. Please take a look at my website. I did an in-depth pre-election program, about an hour earlier this week, and there you can see what I think is likely to happen. But the fact is that the majority of the Republican moneybags were so stunned by the defeat of 2012 that they are largely on the sidelines, at least until now, the last few days. And it's the Koch brothers who have been carrying the Republican Party pretty much by themselves, meaning that the Congress that might take power will be a Koch Congress. Koch will own them lock, stock, and barrel. And that does not augur well for the United States. It's going to be sit down and shut up, right? We just had Ray McGovern, a well-known activist, try to protest General Petraeus at one of his speeches in New York, and he was roughed up. So it was sit down and shut up there. It'll be sit down and shut up to the unions. It'll be sit down and shut up to the peace movement and to anybody who doesn't share this monstrous Republican lockstep. Now, that's not going to go down without a lot of domestic strife. One might say civil war. I'm not bringing up civil war. That's one of the top 5 or 6 radio broadcasters in the country, Michael Savage, who's far to the right of the Republican Party, right? And really off the bounds of democracy, I guess we'd have to say, and the Constitution. And his latest book is The Coming Civil War. So don't take my word for it. They're planning the Civil War, and the Civil War will be waged against those interests that I've just tried to point out. Now, obviously, some ideas about who to vote for, who not to vote for. Let me just go through a few. This Jody Ernst, this is the champion of cultural populism. Right? Joni Ernst, the hog castrator. That's cultural populism. That is political suicide, certainly for working people. Here in Maryland, we've got Christie coming in to support Larry Hogan. So we'll have instead of having the free state of Maryland, we're going to have the sit down and shut up state on the model of Christie. Back in a minute on World Crisis Radio.